Welcome to the Joint Dynamics Intelligent Movement Series podcast, an ongoing discussion with experts in the fields of health, fitness and performance, sharing the science and their tips and tricks that have the goal of taking your health from where you are to where you want it to be.
Ladies wait for tidal waves.
Welcome to the Joint Dynamics podcast. My name's Andrew Cox. I'm one of the owners and directors here at Joint Dynamics. And today, my special guests are the guys from Dormu. It's Jake and Matt. Hey guys, how are you?
Pretty good. Thanks for calling us special as well.
Yeah, doing well.
And Jake is the one with the baritone voice, the deep sort of Barry White. I love that.
That's
the
me,
beard as well, mate.
Barry White.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Matt actually is the neuroscientist. Welcome. So first question, let's get straight off this. So Dormu, it's a luxury wellness brand with the emphasis on sleep. Can you guys give me a little bit more depth? And then I'd love you guys to share the origins of your company. So Jake, do you want to go first?
Yeah.
Tell us about Dormu.
I mean, Dormu is a company we came up with because we're both really interested in sleep. And I know it sounds weird to say because everyone's interested in sleep. It's something we all have to do. And we were having conversations about sleep before, and we have sort of different experiences with sleep products and sleep problems and things like that. So I always had a really weird sleeping pattern and still do. So I've always been really interested in it. And we started talking about it and then got like this passion building up for sleep together. And we always wanted to be our own bosses. So yeah, it sort of grew from there.
And Matt, you're the neuroscientist.
Yeah, that's correct.
So tell us about your studies first and then your research.
Sure. So I studied neuroscience university, did a 4-year undergraduate master's course in the UK, and my research year was on circadian rhythms and mood disorders.
Wow.
Have you come across circadian rhythms?
I have, yeah. Well, let's unpack it. Listen to me speaking the language of podcast world.
We've done it straight into the science already.
Actually, yeah, because today we'll center the podcast around on sleep, the value of sleep, and we'll try to share some information. We've all heard about it, but whether or not we value sleep, if I cast my eyes over Central in Hong Kong and look out at all these thousands of people know that you said that we need to sleep. But maybe not enough people value sleep, and maybe they don't value sleep because they don't really know what happens if they don't sleep enough, and they don't really know the cool stuff that happens if you do sleep enough.
Yeah.
So that can be our role, and then you guys have developed, I'll call it a tool. You guys have some strategies that Dormu has on the market now to help people sleep.
Yeah, so, I mean, in Hong Kong, there's a massive sleep deprivation problem. We look at the statistics, there's something like 60% of adults here are sleep deprived. And even if you look at the kids, they're really sleep deprived as well. I was speaking to a teacher last night. He was telling me like some of these kids are losing their minds. They're not sleeping enough and they have so many extracurricular activities. And you hear over and over that sleep is the third pillar of health. If you're not sleeping enough, it affects everything else. And it was actually, Matt heard something earlier today which really stuck with us. And it was about how sleep is the best performance enhancing drug in the world, basically.
It's the number one.
Yeah.
It's the number one most anabolic substance available to humans. No, that's without a joke.
And it increases your performance by 30%, I think.
Yeah, no. So I came across this study I was reading whereby they were looking at the performance of fighters and the impact of sleep, because notoriously fighters before a big fight will sleep terribly because of anxiety and stress. But having less than 6 hours that night can decrease your exhaustion rate. So that ability to get, so basically, the point where you get exhausted will drop off by about 30%. So if you think about a fighter, if they're trained to fight 10 rounds, they will get to the 7th round and be exhausted if they haven't had more than 6 hours sleep. Which is quite crazy when you think they're always trying to, in that performance world, they're trying to get 1% better, 2% better at the smaller things, but sleep can be so overlooked.
Yeah, it's so close at the top, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's that famous saying, I'm not sure if Mike Tyson, but fatigue makes cowards of us all. Have you guys heard that?
Yeah.
So especially in the world of martial arts, I used to box, and when you're tired, and then, even to the point when you're tired, you're like, I won't hurt that much if I get punched in the face, but that's probably the last thought that you have actually in that match. Because
there was a reason why Tyson always tried to finish his fights in the earlier rounds as well, because he knew that, he had a lung condition as well when he was younger.
Really?
Reading, so getting towards the end of the fight, that was never an option for him. It was end the fight in the first couple of rounds. And he said it, fatigue, that's the problem.
Yeah.
And as said in Hong Kong, sleep deprivation issue, the working culture in Asia is such that, people are expected to be in their offices for a longer period of time. And, there's that expectation there. Where are you going to make up the extra time from? Because you get home, you want to spend time with your family, or you have some leisure time. And so your sleep is starting to disappear at either end. You're getting up earlier, but you're going to bed later. And we realized that the products that we thought would help us, coming from, our office job backgrounds previously, weren't up to scratch, basically.
Yeah.
So we were like, well, if no one else is doing it, let's do it ourselves.
Awesome. Can we go back to your master's research on circadian rhythms? Can you share with us what is the circadian rhythm? And then what's the importance of that during our waking hours and during our sleeping hours?
So circadian rhythms are any biological process that oscillates on a 24-hour rhythm. So the most common being sleep. We sleep, or we should sleep, for 8 hours a night, and we should be awake for around 16 hours. But also, every hormone in the body, every cell has and is aware of the time and will have that same rhythm. And circadian rhythms are so important in what I did my research was on its role in regulating moods. So this idea that if you disrupt your circadian rhythms, either genetically or by having a disrupted sleep pattern, you're more likely to have a mood disorder such as bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. And that's pretty well understood now.
Wow. So from an intuitive perspective, you know what I mean? Like, if I ask anyone out there that's listening to this right now and go, are you more likely to be short with your husband, wife, partner, kids, mates when you're lacking sleep? Everyone's like, sure am. You know what I mean? It's the classic. If someone's hungover or if someone doesn't get enough sleep, that your fuse, so to speak, your fuse of how you will react in an emotional way, which mightn't be the best choice of a reaction, is usually a lot shorter than if you are well rested. As a parent, I can tell you that. And then taking that the next step with your research, that can then lead to more serious mental disorders such as schizophrenia.
Absolutely, yeah. So either genetically, so if you're unfortunate enough to have genetic predisposition where your circadian rhythms are messed up, you're more likely to have a mood disorder. But if you mess it up by shift work or social jet lag, which is this idea that you'll have one sleep pattern through the week and a different one on the weekends, you're more likely to have a mood disorder. We
love habits, don't we, as this animal, don't we? We love to sink into routines and habits, and it seems as though it's really good for our health. So the circadian rhythms, correct me if I'm wrong, that they fluctuate. Is it a 90 to 120 minute cycle during the day?
What do you mean?
So circadian is a 24-hour cycle that you mentioned. Yeah, and then from that, I remember I used to still run these workshops, and so I just did a bit of a deeper dive into it, and I sort of broke it down. And then there was the ultradian rhythm, or the 90 to 120 minute cycle, where they mapped that with body temperature, hormones, and
Yeah, absolutely. So there's the ultradian, which means hourly, and then circadian, which is daily. Most hormones will follow that daily rhythmicity rather than on a hourly scale. And certainly sleep is like that. Some people may have an extended circadian rhythm, so it might run a little longer, and some people may have it a bit shorter. So every night their sleep pattern should change only incrementally, like 10, 20 minutes. But for most people and humans, we're designed to go to sleep the same time every night and wake up the same time every day.
And when you said those hormones, so for example, the wake-up hormones, can you tell us what those are and then what their function is?
Sure. So one of the biggest sleep hormones is melatonin. So this is the hormone that tells you when you should sleep. And that should initiate, so in sort of caveman days where there's no synthetic light, that should start initiating in the system about 8 p.m. and then 2 to 3 hours later, that should be high enough in your blood levels to send you to sleep. And that hormone is suppressed by light and will be answered, as I say, by darkness. But there's a big problem in society these days because of natural light and technology. People are shifting back their daily patterns, and they're going to bed much later than they should be, while still having to wake up at the exact same time, which is obviously leading to sleep deprivation.
So melatonin is a light-sensitive hormone.
Exactly.
That helps you drop into deep sleep. Yeah. And it's also a powerful antioxidant as well, so it does some other cool stuff as well.
Yeah, well, like most hormones, they have multiple roles, but most people know it for being a sleep hormone.
And then 8 hours later, what hormones come up and then what's their function?
So it's not that any hormones come up, it's actually that melatonin will wear off at that point. But what you do get in the morning is a higher spike of cortisol. So most people know cortisol as the stress hormone, because if levels are too high in the day, it can lead you feeling stressed. But it's useful in the morning when you want to be alert, you want to be focused, you want to have higher levels of cortisol, and that should naturally deplete as the day goes on. But what again you have, because of the advent of technology, people are working much later, checking their emails, watching TV, checking WhatsApp, and it's leading them to be a lot more stressed. And it's that cortisol that will linger much longer in the day, which actually makes it very difficult to sleep, because cortisol needs to be low as well as melatonin high to send you to sleep. And
growth hormone, coming out of the gym here at Joint Dynamics, and growth hormone needs to come up a little bit at night time as well, correct?
Yes.
So
I don't know too much about
it. Doesn't work so well with cortisol anyway.
I mean, the elevated levels of cortisol as well, the damage that does to you over time, you probably aren't thinking about, like heart disease, risk of cancer, stroke, things like that. So like having your cortisol levels under control is pretty important, but we're not thinking about the damage we're doing. So like laying in bed on your phone, like right before you go to sleep with that blue light right in your face, it's doing so much damage underneath that we just don't really give consideration to. So, I mean, like the rule of thumb is, you put your phone down, airplane mode or whatever, silent mode, an hour before you go to sleep. You don't look at that screen and you don't lay in bed watching that last episode of Netflix or something, because, you're just doing damage to yourself that later on in life is going to rear its head.
Yeah. To that, though, I'm sure you guys have had this conversation as we here at Joint Dynamics do with our clients as well. From a coaching perspective, we say exactly the same thing. You can't look at your phone before you go to sleep. Yeah. The blue light, melatonin's a light-sensitive hormone. It will inhibit, and then they're like, but I turn the blue light off. I'm like, hello, you turn the blue light off, okay. Yeah. But then you're like, so are you engaged in what you're doing? Is that, what do you say when people say that to you?
It's not a cure-all to
that's the panacea now. Don't tell me not to look at my phone. I've got the blue light off. To that, what do you guys say?
Well, there's two things going on. If you want to get to sleep, you need to be relaxed as well as there being a lack of light. And if people are on their phones too long, they're going to be in this state of arousal. So it's going to be much more difficult to drift off. But also, they've done studies whereby they've compared people reading a book with a dim light on compared to reading a Kindle, which doesn't emit that much blue light. And they found that people reading the Kindle will take 30 minutes at least longer to get to sleep. So even if you have your phone and you turn... Because I think there's even apps where you can sort of dim the lights
I've got that online,
stop that. It's still not the perfect thing to do.
Yeah. And it's the struggle that, everyone's getting work emails pinging through towards the end of the day and they're like, I just need to finish this. But you have to, it's about routine. Like you said earlier, we love all sorts of routines, but for some reason, our sleep routine, we're not really into. So part of what we do as well for a lot of our blogs is educational. So we teach you, how to have some good sleep hygiene, develop healthy habits, It's good to have a bedtime routine. We had one when we were like kids, you'd have a bath and then, you go and read a story and everything slowly leads you towards going to sleep. But now it's like we're going a mile a minute as adults and then you get to the point where you just crash. And like people think, it's great last night. I was so exhausted. I fell asleep really fast. But falling asleep fast is a sign of sleep deprivation. You shouldn't be conking out within 5 minutes of hitting the pillow. So there's a sign that there's something underlying and you're just not getting enough sleep, basically.
Yeah. So, Dormu, tell us about that and then tell us about that. I'm inverted air commas right here, the tool that you guys have. So tell us about your company. You guys met, so you studied neuroscience, Matt, and you studied politics, Jake, and you both got into finance.
Yeah.
Correct? And that's where you guys met?
Correct.
Working in a financial institution, one of the big banks here. And then along the way, you guys went, I like sleep, my name's Matt. And you went, yeah, I like sleep too, I'm Jake. And then you came up with this idea to create a company. And yes, it's a luxury wellness brand with the emphasis on sleep. It seems a little bit, I'm not really sure what you do. Do you know what I mean? So can you very clearly tell us what you do?
So originally,
I've got sleep, but what are you giving me to help me sleep?
Yeah. So originally, like I had this sort of seed of an idea for a company, had the name, had an idea of the route I wanted to take it down, and I just happened to mention it to Matt, and he was so enthusiastic, and he was like, "Okay, let's meet for a drink tomorrow night." I was like, "Wow, they're like really excited about this," and I was still figuring out ideas at the time. And then we ended up staying on, there's a rooftop bar somewhere around Central. We ended up having a few drinks together and just throwing ideas back and forth. And we were there till the bar closed because we were just both so excited about what this idea could be. And one thing, like knowing Matt's scientific background as well, I was very much like, I don't want it to be faddy. I don't want to have gimmicks or anything like that because there's so many companies in the wellness space that are very fad related, lots of gimmicks, lots of, this is going to cure all your problems overnight, basically. I wanted to actually know the science behind the products that we would develop. And then for me, sustainable materials as well, because like that's a big thought, priority for me. I don't like the thought that our products, and their development would harm animals or people or the planet and their production. So we wanted to have sustainable materials being used. And it's just lucky that the materials we did use have multiple benefits as well as being sustainable. So that goes into our sort of flagship product, which is a weighted blanket.
There it is.
There it is.
I didn't know you were going to tell us then. I was like, what is it?
Yeah.
Sorry, it's a weighted blanket. Go
Had
on.
to do the build up for
Love
it.
it.
Had to get people excited.
Building of tension,
Yeah.
release of tension.
Exactly.
Love it.
So weighted blankets is something, like it's a product that's very, very popular in North America and Europe. But if you say weighted blanket to someone in Hong Kong, you're looked at with a blank face. No one knows what you're talking about. And maybe a few expats in Hong Kong, they have an idea of what they are, but, people that have lived here for a few years probably still have no idea. So we looked into the science of weighted blankets because we could see that they were incredibly popular and what they can actually provide to you, especially in a sleep-deprived region like Asia. It's unbelievable, the benefits. And being a skeptic about a lot of things, at first I was like, weighted blanket can't be this good. It can't do the things it says it can. And the more I heard Matt talk about it, he really sold me on the idea. And then we started hunting around for manufacturers that could make it sustainably. So a lot of the ones on the market, unfortunately, they're cheap because they use bad materials. First time I tried the blanket, I was like, this is a weird sensation. Something heavy on top of me, but, after a while you suddenly go, I feel relaxed. My stresses are going away. But I'll let Matt explain the science behind it, how it works. What's it actually doing to your body to create the sensation and help you drift off to sleep in a more natural way? For me, as I mentioned earlier, I've always had an odd sleeping pattern. My circadian rhythms are actually quite messed up, like a lot of people.
And worse than a lot of people, Jake. You've got
yeah,
sleeping pattern.
that's true. Like my sleeping pattern is pretty horrific, and I spoke to a sleep therapist about it not too long ago, and she said effectively my body doesn't react to light in the same way, so I'm operating on almost a 30-hour cycle for a day. So it's good for getting work done at odd hours
Hang
of
on,
the day.
what planet if you go one planet further away from the sun, you'll probably, so maybe your parents, maybe your parents are from, what is the next planet? Is it?
Oh, I don't know.
Anyone out there? Anyway, sorry.
Venus or something.
Venus,
Venus.
your dad might be a Venetian. And he flew to, anyway, back.
Yeah, so they say men are from Venus, right? And women
There
are
it
from
is.
Mars. Yeah.
There it is. That's on the side of planet
overweight.
Earth.
Yeah, and then they dropped me off here when I was younger.
It's like Superman.
Yeah.
No way.
But yeah, so I've always had an odd sleeping pattern since I was a child. Like, at first they thought maybe it was insomnia because I wasn't sleeping at night. So my parents would walk past my bedroom and I'd be there middle of the night playing with like action figures and Lego and stuff. And they'd say it's, 4 a.m. You're not tired or anything. You should be sleeping. And I was just wide awake, totally wired. And I've been like that forever. So now, having the flexibility of running this company, I can sleep when I get tired now. And I try to be a little more organized. That's why, as I mentioned earlier, bedtime routine for me is really important because I want to get my head in the right space to actually go to sleep.
Yeah. So, Matt, so the science on weighted blankets, and then also how much weight do we need?
Sure.
Can you
Sure. So weighted blankets came into existence in the 80s, mainly used as a therapeutic tool to help children with sensory deprivation issues and autism. And then they've only really become popular since about 2015, when a big company in the US sort of made them mainstream. They did this huge Kickstarter campaign. And ever since then, loads of companies have sprouted out doing similar types of blankets. But basically how they work, they're heavy. They typically weigh between, everything good?
Yeah, I just touched something on the computer. Sorry, we're good to go, mate.
So they typically weigh between 7 to 15 kilos. And the idea is that they give you this hug-like sensation, which is known in the scientific community as deep pressure stimulation. And what it does is there needs to be more work conducted on, more research conducted on weighted blankets. But the theory is that it actually helps in reducing anxiety. So I mentioned cortisol before. A big issue is that cortisol levels are way too high in the evening, so it's difficult for people to drift off. Weighted blankets have been shown to reduce cortisol levels, making it much easier to enter dreamland. And they've also been shown to raise melatonin levels as well, just before sleep. But the main idea is they're just like a big hug. So they help you relax.
It's like being swaddled when you're a baby, like
Exactly.
helps you fall asleep, or like the way that, if you hold your pet cat or pet dog and they fall asleep when, you've got your hand on them and you're helping them relax. So like the sort of emphasis is, it's like being hugged, but not by a person. So you're not going to get that spike in body temperature. I mean, I run hot when I sleep and like if my partner, if she touches me whilst I'm sleeping, I'm like, just get off of me. You're making me too warm. But the weighted blanket, the materials we use, especially, being two English guys living in Hong Kong, these hot, sticky summers, we were thinking we have to have a material that actually allows you to have some airflow to prevent overheating, especially for me. I don't want to lay there, sweating in the Hong Kong heat with a big blanket over me. So that's why we chose to make the blanket from bamboo, because it's thermoregulating the material on the outside. So, if you've got the aircon on a low setting, you have that air flowing through the blanket and you can remain cool, but you still get that nice hug sensation with the weight evenly distributed across your body. And the way in our main weighted blanket, which is the bamboo cooling one, we have these like medical grade glass beads inside the blanket, and that's how it's weighted.
Oh, really?
So when you're touching the blanket itself, you can't really feel what's weighting it basically. But yeah, there's these tiny little glass beads in there. The reason I said earlier there's a lot of companies using materials that they shouldn't really use is because most of these weighted blankets have plastic beads inside. It's not ideal for the environment, and also doesn't last as long, and you can't always be sure that you're getting the correct weight. So something we wanted to do is make sure we're using the right materials, and you can place the blanket on a scale and it's exactly where it should be.
How do you stop all those glass beads going to one end of the blanket? Like, when you've got your feather doona, and inevitably all those bloody feathers go to one end. How do you stop the
They're in
glass?
pockets. So there's probably about 50 pockets throughout the blanket, and they're equally distributed throughout that. So it stops that.
So you don't suddenly get a huge amount of weight on your leg and you're like, what the hell is this? This is really uncomfortable. And then for our the duvet cover that goes over our blanket, we have these material tassels on the inside, so it keeps it connected. So when you like pick up your duvet and you shake it out and everything falls to the bottom, that won't happen. Everything's connected, so throughout the night it's not shifting around. It's going to stay on top of you and keep you asleep, so no one waking up in the night.
Awesome. I've one. Thank you. I've one on my bed. And it's heavy. Like,
Yeah.
what size is the one? Do I have a...
Do you have a double?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
double
it's
one.
the double.
So that's 20
20
pounds.
Yeah.
20 pounds, so divided by 2, that's about 6 kilos. No,
bet-
geez, that's
yeah.
it's about
11.
8, 9
11,
kilos.
I think.
2.2, anyway, whatever. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. When you try to
Again,
pick that up and
conversions,
shake it out,
Yeah.
when you shake that out, and we'll just n equals 4, so I've got one blanket. And the first night I brought it home, my wife, and she doesn't sleep that well. She's naturally one of those people. She has the pad and paper boat, and she'll wake up and she'll brain dump. That's my wife.
Yeah.
She's Sicilian. So imagine everything that you might generalise about a Sicilian is my wife.
Okay.
I love it. It's great. So you know where you stand when you're married to a Sicilian.
I can imagine.
Anyway, so the first night she slept with it, she woke up and she said, that was the best night's sleep I've had in a long time.
Wow.
Awesome.
And then so we were talking about it. The next night before we went to bed, both my kids were under the thing saying, no way, can we have it? So that night, my daughter slept with it and she loved it. The next night, my son slept with it, he loved it. And then finally, I got to have a go, and now my wife and I share with it. So n equals 4 from the Cox family, but it's unanimous that it works for us. And I was just saying, last night when I was sleeping in it, and so I don't put my feet under it, but what I find, if I bring it up and I pull the blanket up and it's just near my ears, I don't know if the neck or something likes that gentle pressure, but I go to an even happier place. And it really is, it's a hug. And I wondered, I was hypothesizing, and I was like, so swaddling a kid, are we just trying to recreate what's in the womb? They're in the womb, they're getting like a hug of their mother's womb for essentially 40 weeks. You come out and you're like, oh my goodness, my arms are flailing, this is crazy, I'm panicking. So we wrap our children in a swaddle. Is there any validity to say we keep that sort of innate mechanism where we like that gentle hug, or we like that return to the womb?
Because there is something called touch starvation. And I mean, I'm not a particularly touchy-feely person, so like if someone randomly runs up and hugs me, I'll be like, whoa, what are you doing? But even for the most anti-touch person, eventually your body is starved of it, and that's why it's called touch starvation. They do studies into how it affects, depression, various other things that can come from that. So I think having that feeling of something over you, something like the way the blanket swallows your body, but you still have room to move around. Because, like you say, when you just pick up the blanket, it's like doing bicep curls. It's
bloody heavy, and
right?
it's awkward as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to bring it into the gym and do a workout with it.
When you're under the blanket on the bed, suddenly it doesn't feel like you've got as much weight on you because of the way it's distributed out. So some people say like that they're a little confused at first. So we have amazing feedback so far, which is great. Lots of people saying they're having the best sleep of their lives. But often the first piece of feedback we get is, it's really heavy. I didn't realize how heavy it would be. So something we always say to everyone is, you give it, 7 to 14 days, 2 weeks with the blanket, your body needs to adjust to sleep under it every night. And eventually, if it's odd at first, then it'll become part of your bedtime routine and you'll want to have it every single night.
That's my experience. I love it. My wife loves it.
Straight away, right? You didn't have.
Yeah, I didn't need that.
Period.
I didn't need that acclimation period.
Yeah, so it's different for everyone. That's why, like you said, with the pressure applied to your neck, we all have different pressure points that we like to have something on. So you might want to have the blanket just on your body and not your feet, like you say. Whereas other people, they want to be completely under it. And then some people just say, lay it across my chest in the evening, or lay it just across my legs after a hike or something like that. So we all have these different pressure points that we want to use it on. Whereas my partner, she still uses our original prototype, the first blanket we got. And she won't let me take it off her. And I've said to her, let me give you a brand new one. Like, you've got the one that wasn't quite designed as we wanted it to be. And she's like, no one is taking this away from me. She sleeps on it every night. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. But, that sort of feedback that you're actually changing people's lives is pretty cool to hear. Cool. Yeah.
That's very cool. It's certainly, even just talking about it, I feel I have an upregulation of my parasympathetic nervous system. That fight or flight, which is maybe associated a bit with the cortisol, and then there's the rest, digest, regenerate. Then when I did that little thought experiment in my brain where I'm pulling the pill up, I sort of just went, huh. You know what I mean? As soon as my experience and my family experience, as soon as you get under it, like that first night my kids got under it on our bed, they were like, no way!
It's a weird sensation.
Yeah, it's
at first.
great.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
And I just remembered, sorry, you asked earlier what weight is correct, and we didn't answer your question. So the general rule of thumb is about 10% of the user's body weight, but studies have shown that if you're going to be above or below, you should probably be a little more above that 10%. Heavier is better, effectively. But again, every single person is different, so you just have to see what's right for you and try it out. That's why we have our 60-night money-back guarantee as well. So that confident it's going to change your sleep and you're going to be okay. So, so 10% is the rule of thumb, but again, it's different for everyone, and heavier is better. It's safe for humans to sleep under a weight of 35 pounds, I think.
I think I have 45 pounds.
Yeah, 45 pounds, yeah.
Go on.
Which is surprising to think that, something that weighs that much. I mean, our biggest is our king-size blanket, and that's 25 pounds.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's safer to sleep under more weight. So you just have to try it out for yourself and, you figure out which weight is right for you. And you may find that you graduate almost. So you start off with a single blanket to get accustomed and acclimatized to it. And then you take the step up. So we've had return customers who bought a single and then come back and buy a double or king a few weeks later, which is awesome. So they're on their way to that perfect night's sleep, and we're trying to help them along on that journey as well.
That's great. One thing that you said previously about trends, because fitness, health, nutrition, it's such a trend-based environment. I don't know, that movie Game Changers came out, all of a sudden it's plant-based, and then we swung the pendulum the other way. Look over here, now it's keto, and then, paleo.
So confusing.
It's to be honest, I feel it's more marketing than it is what's best for the end user. And you said it best. It's confusing. Like, if you follow nutrition, like imagine being the end user, like someone that isn't passionate about health, wellness, they don't have time. And then all of a sudden, I remember there was a time when trainers were saying fruit was bad for you. Like, can you imagine how confused you'd be? So, hang on a minute, that's another whole food group gone. And maybe there is a case where fruit is not ideal for people, but geez, it's the minority, you know what I mean? We throw out these blanket statements that fruit's bad for you. Why? Because it's got fructose in it, and there was some research on rats where they loaded them up with the equivalent of their body weight of fructose, and guess what? It wasn't good for them. Wow, well that means that humans probably shouldn't have fruit because fruit has fructose. Like we jump onto these things and we create these marketing campaigns, and we have this perfect, where's that little rectangle that we have in our pocket, this perfect delivery mechanism called a phone that has social media that popular culture feeds off. And then, hey presto, all of a sudden fruit's bad or meat's bad, or you know what I mean, all these things that come out. So
some of these things snowball. They take the ball and they run with it, and then suddenly, you're hearing things like, fruit is bad for you. It's crazy.
I have this with intermittent fasting at the moment. I don't know if it's good or bad. I do it for a while, I feel really good, and then I hear, no, you should have a bigger meal first thing in the morning, so I stopped doing it for a while.
I
just have no idea.
It's easy to be confused.
Levels in the morning as well, so you switch back and forth at one point. And it's the same with me, like with my workouts. I read something and I go, oh my God, this is life-changing. Like, this is going to get me, like...
the one exercise you need to do.
Like, and you bounce between, like, you could do, like, volume training or, like, strength and conditioning stuff. And, like, you're bouncing around and you read, like, these articles in these magazines and online articles as well. So you're bouncing around the workout and you're thinking, maybe I'll just go back to my original workout. Because you get caught up in the fads, I guess.
But you're right, it's all marketing.
It's brilliant.
It's how Men's Health prints so many magazines
all
the time, right?
They shouldn't have to do like that many articles on one thing, you think, unless there's drastic changes.
The one thing you need to do comes out every month, doesn't it? It's incredible.
Do these 5 workouts for giant arms. And it's like, that's on the cover every single time. And I was like, hold on.
It's always different, right? You're like, which do I do?
Yeah.
Do I get
the old one? I've seen the results, but now you're saying do this.
They've linked this one to better sexual behaviour. Oh my goodness, it must be this one.
So that's, that going back to us, that's something
that's
like, I was like hammering it into Matt, and he was doing it to me as well, saying, we don't want to be one of those companies that says one thing with no scientific support and then just flips on to something else to keep bouncing between ideas. So we read a lot of medical journals as well, and we want to keep up to date with every piece of information. So there was something really interesting we read recently at Swedish University. They're studying the effects of weighted blankets on insomnia. And then another article I was reading about how weighted blankets can calm people that have dementia as well. So there's all these studies coming out. So we want to be up to date with what we're doing because we don't want to feed false information and just get people scared about certain things without anything backing it up. So education
would you say
is a big deal for us.
That's where I was heading. So Dormu is the luxury company emphasis on sleep. So your product is a weighted blanket, but also its education is your product as well.
Yeah.
So we produce a lot of content.
Yeah.
So we try.
That's on your website, Dormu.
Yeah. Dormusleep.com.
Yeah.
So we try and release a blog every week or twice a week if we can. And they're all educational, tip based.
Yeah.
And we should say actually, so weighted blankets is what we do now. It's not going to be our only product.
Yeah.
We want it to be a range of functional sleep products. But we just started with a weighted blanket.
Yeah, it's our flagship, and we're bringing it to a part of the world where, as I said earlier, people don't really know about weighted blankets. So, yeah, it's very educational what we do, but we want people to experience how great this product is as well. So we actually have another style of weighted blanket coming out next week, which is like a chunky knitted version with cotton inside. So it's like very nice. You want to snuggle up on the couch. I'm sure the kids would love that one actually. And then we've got a 100% blackout sleep mask in development at the moment.
Nice.
We're collaborating with the designs team at PolyU as well. So, you know, we've got the experts working on it at the moment. So that's...
Yeah, this has been a tricky one. So we wanted to release with a sleep mask. We wanted that to be our first product. And we dealt with 10, 20 manufacturers and designers trying to get it right, and we still haven't been able to do it, but I think we're close.
Yeah,
I think we're getting close.
Because we basically went into Lane Crawford and bought a bunch of sleep masks, and we tried them out, and we spoke to everyone we knew using one and said, what do you like about it? What don't you like about it? We're just trying to figure it out. And then we started designing our own mask, trying to incorporate all the things people said were missing from their mask and really defining our design and getting it perfect. So that's what's been difficult, because a lot of manufacturers do identikit sleep masks, you know, whatever's selling is the one they'll just copy. So no one could really put together what we wanted. That's why we linked up with PolyU to get this developed, basically. So we think, you know, there's no point in having a sleep mask that says it's blackout and doesn't block out the light. That's the purpose of it. But, you know, we want it to be comfortable. We want it to be luxury. You know, we want people to throw out all their other sleep masks and be, this is the one for me. This is the one I take on flights. This is the one I'm sleeping with every night. When people can fly again, obviously.
Yeah.
So
We are in the middle of a no-fly zone, aren't we?
So we would rather, you know, work and develop our products to be the best at what we do than just chucking out anything that's like not quite good enough. So yeah, those are the things on the horizon. We've got our own bedsheet range and things like that.
Hang on, not a weighted bedsheet. Just I was going to say, hang on a minute. But it's so. What's the weighted blanket I have? What's on the outside of that? Because that's a really nice.
That's a
feel on the skin.
fabric.
That's bamboo fabric. That feels really nice to touch.
Lyocell bamboo. So that goes back into the sustainable aspect. Is that it's produced in a closed loop, so there's no water wastage or anything like that. So you can get multiple different types of bamboo materials, and there's lots of materials they say are sustainable. This is like the number one for the way it's produced. Not only that, it feels like silk when you touch it.
Yeah.
But, you know, no silkworms are having to die to produce it as well.
Yeah.
And it's thermoregulating, as I said earlier, so the air is flowing through the blanket, so you're not getting overheated under it. I mean, my girlfriend, she sleeps under the weighted blanket and then a duvet on top of that, which for me, that's a little bit too far to do that. But yeah, so she says she still feels the air flowing through from the air conditioning, so it's okay. That's
the future of companies, though, isn't it? The best marketing is to be doing stuff that's good for the consumer, but also good for the environment.
Yeah.
That's where we all hopefully are. Like, you speak to my kids, they are so aware. Like my daughter, she's 12, she's so aware. It makes me feel a lot more good about the future if it's going to be in the hands of the kids at our age, because they're really aware. Yeah. And I think there's going to come a time when they're aware that you vote with your wallet. And if I buy product A that's loaded with plastic beads, and we all know that microplastics is not doing us any favours as far as the ocean's concerned. The fish are sick of them. Yeah. Get these out of here.
More plastic in the ocean than fish.
Yeah, so really our biggest voice is the way we spend our money. And when you look at children my kids' age, they're certainly absorbing a lot of this from school. And I hope that it somehow doesn't get knocked out of them, or somehow that they don't lose that desire to do what's the right thing.
There's a shift in the younger generation towards these things, and like what they're like I say, voting with their wallet, and they're telling these companies now, like oil companies, for example, are having a really hard time at the moment because there's a shift in popular opinion. People realize that, okay, we're either going to have this planet in the future or we're not. And if you want to keep the planet, then we've got to start making changes now. But
it's inherent to the name, a non-renewable resource, isn't it? Sooner or later, if it's non-renewable, we're going to run out of it sooner or later. Why don't we look at some options?
Yeah, you need to start making the changes now. I mean, people have known this for so long, but it's a good thing that the shift is genuinely catching
and that's one of the
energy and steam here.
That's one of the core pillars of your company as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we wanted to, I mean, for us, like everyone in Hong Kong, we want to have nice things. You want to touch nice things. You want to feel luxury. You want to feel comfort. So that's, we want to make sure we do that. But we know there's a way that you can do it without compromising everything else around you. So, we're not compromising the planet when we produce it. We're not damaging animals. We're not hurting people. So very keen. When we were originally looking at our weighted blanket, it was into something like 80 manufacturers or some ridiculous number like that that we actually approached. I mean, Matt was extremely patient, and I'm maybe not so patient when it came to dealing with the manufacturers, but to find someone that could produce what we wanted in the correct way. And so we were unrelenting as always. It needs to be luxury, and it needs to be good for the environment. Yeah. Or non-detrimental.
Yeah.
And
if the client doesn't like it, then it's you're not going to buy two of them.
Yeah, it needs to do what we say it does as well. So we went through huge amounts of testing, and the first products went to people around us in our circle to say, "Can you try this out? Can you make sure that it does what we believe it does?" And so there's nothing better than that sort of social proof of people trying the product and saying, "Yeah, you're not having it back because I'm sleeping under it every night now."
Ultimately, in any company, the market is a listening device, isn't it? If people are saying, "Yes, that works, can I have one?" you're in the right direction. If people say, "Thanks for that, doesn't work, I don't want another one," well, then you're like, "Okay, we need to adapt."
Yeah.
And it's interesting what you said before, because we've got a few pillars going on. So we've got the sustainability, the luxury, and the function, which sounds like a lot. But I strongly believe that if you have luxurious items, then they look good, they're comfortable, then more people are going to adapt them. So it's very important. Because a lot of the biggest sleep companies in the world that do what we do with the weighted blankets and the sleep masks, they just look like dumb products that people aren't going to wear. Some of the sleep masks are huge, and they're just not going to be adopted by that many
taking
people.
These elements, so you've got a lot of products that are luxurious but flimsy and just not very good. But they're marketed as luxury because, the nice packaging, the nice materials, things like that. But functionality is almost non-existent there. And then you've got the ultra-functional items that generally help with your sleep and they do what they say. But as Matt says, you look at them and you go, I'm kind of embarrassed to be using this product and I don't want people to see me using it. So we were like, okay, can see these two, it's like a Venn diagram. We sort of took from those two pillars and we're in the middle and we're taking from both sides to give you, something that looks good, feels good, but actually does what we say it does.
Yeah. And hopefully all that use it sleep better, and then that's a virtuous cycle. If you sleep better, life just becomes easier. Absolutely.
Yeah, you find how every aspect of your life starts to improve, and if you're at the gym trying to lose weight and stuff like that, you're probably not going to lose weight if you're not sleeping right. Like the performance thing that Matt said earlier, all aspects of your life start to improve, and sleep is at the basis,
Yeah. All right. Hey, I think we've almost come to a natural conclusion, but in that statement, I'm going to create a space for you right now where you can scan through and go, you know what I wish I had said? Because when you do a podcast, and my background was in sports, and after a game when I played the sport that I played, I'd always go away and go, I did that well, I didn't do this so well, and I wish I had have done this, and here's what I'll do before I play my sport again. I'm going to create that opportunity for you right now, because when you leave here in 20 minutes, you're going to go, oh, Jake, you know what I forgot to say? We forgot to say that thing about Matt.
Yeah, we had this with a podcast we did recently. We came out of it and we're like, we should have mentioned that.
We were thinking, I can't remember what it was now, but as soon as we came out, we both said,
it'll probably be the same thing.
No!
I think for us, we want to educate people on what weighted blankets are. So I hope we've done that service, gone through the history, and what our product does.
We actually have a weighted blanket guide, so the sort of everything you need to know. We have a blog about it, but we also have a page on our site that's going live next week.
Yeah.
Which will be like your weighted blanket Bible, so to speak. You'll go through that, you'll get all the information you need, and then you can make an informed, educated decision on the purchase as well. And what our goal is effectively, as we expand our product range, is to be along on that journey as you develop your bedtime routine. We want to help out with all aspects of sleep, and as the company expands, we're going to bring more functional luxury products to the playing field as well.
That's amazing. That was great. So if I was to try to find you guys, I've just listened to this podcast, and if I was looking to find you, I would go to dormusleep.com.
Yeah.
And then if I was someone that was to consume popular culture through social media, Instagram, Facebook, I could find you on those platforms as well?
So it's the website, Instagram, Facebook, it's all the same. Dormu Sleep. It's Dormu.
Dormu.
Yeah, which actually means sleep in Esperanto. So
in what language?
Sleep.
Yeah, we're sleep. Esperanto. It's it was a language.
The global language.
It's a global language created.
I keep telling people it's Latin.
It's made up of like Latin, English, French. It's a combination language, and it was meant to be. This is where the politician in me comes out. I studied politics. Yeah. So Esperanto was going to be like a global language. Like the UN could start using it, things like this, and it just never became what it was meant to be.
What's the hell this desire for monoculture? Diversity in nature is bloody one of the central tenets of health, isn't it? And we try to monotonize, make something monotone, and everybody speak this way. Oh, bloody hell,
the great
really?
thing about Dormu, the name, is that there's lots of languages that have, like, the Spanish and French, the word for sleep is quite similar to Dormu as well. And there's a word in Mandarin that's similar to Dormu for sleep as well. So it's like we sort of created this global word, and we want that to mean sleep, basically.
There you go. Where Esperanza failed, Dormu, you got at least that one word.
Yeah.
Around the world, it's going to have that same.
And it's a nice sounding word.
I like
Soothing.
it.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot for coming in, guys. It was great
appreciate
to
you
have
having us. Yeah.
And thank you so much for the blanket that I've had now for about a month. Is that right?
Probably about that, yeah.
It's part of my sleep hygiene on a daily basis. I love it.
And we have our Joint Dynamics discount.
No! What about tell me about it, because this podcast will go live in September.
Yeah.
So what would I do if I wanted to get a Joint Dynamics discount? Go to your, obviously, dormusleep.com.
The website, and then at checkout, put JD20.
JD20 for a 20% discount.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. That's amazing. All right. Thanks for coming in. It was lovely to speak to you guys.
Cheers.
And thanks for tuning in again, guys. It's September, October. We're weekly now. So I'll speak to you again next week. Thanks for coming in, Matt.
Awesome.
See you guys.
Cheers.